Right. This the coming Shabbos, not this Shabbos, but next Shabbos, is going to be the Yud Shvat, the 10th day of the 11th month of the Jewish year, which is called Shvat. And that was the day that in 1950, Tafshin Yud, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, he passed away. And 1 year later, officially on the same date, was when the present Lubavitcher Rebbe took over. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he ruled over Chabad in a revealed way until 1994. And then in 1994, the Rebbe sort of disappeared from us. Exactly what happens to tzaddikim after they die, I don't really know, but it says that they're always alive, that they live forever, and that even more in this world than they are when they were actually physically alive. So there must be some sort of a different system that's going on, but we don't really know what a Rebbe is. We don't know what a Jew is. We don't really know what God is. We don't even know what the creation is, what the world is. And that's why the Rebbes are here, why the Jews are here, to make the world a real world. That's what everyone will see, and they'll feel that the world is a creation and that God is creating it, and that God is creating it for a purpose, and that the world is tremendously important, and potentially the world is tremendously holy, potentially. But we have to make it that way. How do we see the world as holy? There was at one time, there was a holy temple. The holy temple was a place in this world, and it was holy. You could feel that there was a creator. You could feel that we're being created. You could feel the infinite importance and joy and meaning of this world, of this physical world, everything that happens. What a miracle everything is. You could feel it, you could see it. Everyone. That was when the Holy Temple was here, but it was only in one place. And the people also weren't really proper receptacles to it. It's like going to a music concert, something. A person that has no appreciation whatsoever, a music tone deaf person, and he goes, he doesn't hear, just hears this big hum, and people are paying like $500 a ticket to get in or whatever, and hear this thing, and they're all just swooning and going, and he has no idea what's going on whatsoever. He likes the ornaments. He's looking at the at the architecture of the room or something. So he doesn't do the same thing as this world. So that's what it says. In the beginning, when God created the world, it was for a few hours there until Adam ate from the tree. So the world was this beautiful, meaningful, godly place. You could see that everything was here with tremendous intention. Nothing was by accident. And then when Adam ate from the tree, so things sort of the world got more confused. It became less meaningful and less this, and little by little, that's what happened. It went further and further this in descent, so to speak, that God's presence left the world. And then came Abraham. Abraham was the first Jew to reverse the process. He was alone, and he reversed the process. He started bringing God's presence back down by means of his total self-sacrifice, because he didn't really see any results. And after him was Yitzchak, Yaakov, till finally Moshe came, and Moshe, that was like, 2,000 something, 500 years after the creation of the world, Moshe brought the Shekhinah back to God's presence, the Shekhinah back to the world, and that was in the Holy Temple. And since he did that, then we know it's possible, we can do it, and now each and every one of us is a holy temple, and we have to do this in ourselves, every single one of us. And so that's what was hinted at King Solomon's song, book that he wrote, which is called the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim. love relationship between God and the Jewish people in the desert and in giving them the Torah and in the building of the temple. Solomon built the temple, first temple. And it's filled with all sorts of deep secrets and everything. So that's what this is based on. This is what we're going to learn. Okay, this what's called Hasidic discourse has 20 paragraphs to it. 20 paragraphs. Each one has a different is counted with a different letter, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet. 20 paragraphs. So when it was originally said by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak. It was said like in the 1920s when he took over. He became Rebbe. I think it was 1929. I have to look and see. And then the Rebbe took when Lubavitcher, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he came to America, he was already pretty paralyzed. He came in a wheelchair. He came there in 1940. And he fled the Nazis. He fled the war. He came in 1940, and he was already in a wheelchair, and it became progressively more paralyzed until by the time this mine was given out, he couldn't speak. The only one that could really understand him was his son-in-law, who became the next Rebbe. That's our Rebbe now, Rebbe Menachem Mendel. And so the Rebbe gathered up from his memoriam that he had written, the previous Rebbe had written, and he published this. This was the last one. This was for this mine was published for the Yud Shvat, for the day he was supposed to pass away. And then when the previous Rebbe passed away in 1950, so every year thereafter, when the Rebbe took over in 1951. So on that year, the sign, in fact, of him assuming the position of leading the Chabad movement, which the whole purpose of the Chabad movement is to, like I said, do what Abraham started, to bring God's presence truly back here in a permanent way, like it was before Adam ate from the tree, and even higher. Before the Lubavitcher Rebbe took over, as the sign that he was taking over was that he explained the first paragraph of these 20 paragraphs. And every year thereafter, he'd explain the succeeding paragraph. In other words, the first year he was Rebbe, explained Aleph, and the second year he explained Beis. And so the Rebbe essentially was the Rebbe for 40 years. 40 years. And up until 44 years. And every year he explained one of the 20 paragraphs. So it ended up that he explained every paragraph twice, because he went through the whole thing 2 times. So in 1981, that's Tafshin Mem Aleph, 81. So he was explaining the 11th chapter of Bati L'Gani. 1981 and in 1961. He was explaining the 11th chapter. So that's what we're learning today. We're going to learn this. We're going to learn what the Rebbe, the explanation of the Rebbe in 1981, the explanation of the 11th chapter of this mimer that the previous Rebbe said. Okay, what did it say in the 11th chapter of the mimer? Essentially, what does it say? It says the Jews are called the army of God. Siva Os Hashem. The Jews are called the army of God, and they have to fight the battles in this world of God. And what is the battle of God? This bringing God's presence into the world, making it revealed, that's a battle, because the world opposes us. And this battle especially occurs inside of each and every one of us. Because after Moses brought God's presence back into the world, the Holy Temple, so now this same process of bringing the thing, it just depends on each one of us internally. The Shekhinah, God's presence is already here. We didn't drive it away, but it just depends on each one of us individually to do the work and bring it back here. And if the Jews don't do it, so, the whole purpose of the creation of the world is not being fulfilled. But Mashiach, the idea of Mashiach is that Mashiach will convince all of the Jews to, yes, do this work on their own personal selves and to bring God's presence back into the world. And the Rebbes of Chabad, they're the Mashiach of every generation. They were the Mashiach of their generation. And but it's a battle. It's a battle. So in order to fill this battle, as you have to be a warrior, you have to be in the army of God. So let's see what exactly is implied. What type of a battle is talking about over here? And one thing which is typical, is demanded of a soldier, is that he have self-sacrifice. A soldier has to have self-sacrifice. A soldier has to not think about himself. He has to think about winning the battle, even at the cost of his life. And so that is what is required from us as well in bringing God's presence into the world, that we have to do it from our essence, our deepest essence. It's a very, very deep battle that is required over here. Battle. But when a soldier is in battle, it brings out aspects of his personality, deep aspects that would normal, regular life would never bring out. That would never bring out. Okay. I'll just throw this in. I don't know what it's worth, but I'll throw it in anyway. Somebody sent me a very short video clip of Trump, the president of the United States, Trump. This must have been 30 years ago, something like that, 40 years ago. He was young. And he was always rich. And he said, right now, the situation with Trump is that everybody is abandoning him. And they're all, not loyal to him. The people that he trusted and his best friends and etc. So it's like the play Julius Caesar, if you ever saw it in the beginning. His best friends, Attu, Brutus, his best friends, they are perfidious to him, and I saw him that he was saying, it was a very short thing, and it was in an interview, in a television interview, and he said, and what he said before and what he said after, I don't know, but he said, I've considered a lot of times that it would be really worthwhile to lose all of my money temporarily just to see who's really loyal or not. Just to see who's really loyal. And so the person said, well, you can't tell him, and you're a businessman, you can't tell. He said, no, it's impossible to know. You can't know until the last moment. Can't know who's really loyal. In other words, when they say the chips are down, they say, when things get difficult, then all of a sudden the essence of a person comes out. And a person says, hey, I want to save my own skin, I want to save my own life. If he's really got this self-sacrifice or not. Is he really truly devoted? Is his word really a word? Is his signature a signature? Is his promises promises? A person doesn't know himself. Doesn't really know in his essence, he swears to be honest, he swears to be this, will he really hold up when everything comes down? That's why bribery, it says that in the Torah, that bribery, says it blinds the eyes of the wise and makes crooked the words of the righteous. Bribery, a person is righteous, he's high, he's teaching, everybody gives lectures, and all of a sudden somebody gives him a bribe, either positive or makes him afraid, threatens him or something, and suddenly his whole personality changes, little by little. And really, we're all guilty of that. The Yetzer Hara has bribed all of us. Little by little, we lie a little bit over here, and we cheat a little bit over here, and we're a little bit lazy over there, and we're a little bit selfish over there. So that's the battle that we're fighting. We're fighting a battle of loyalty to God. Are we really loyal to what's good or not? And it's a very, very deep, deep battle that we have to fight within ourselves. So let's have a look. Bati L'Gani, I have come to my garden, my sister bride. This is a sentence from Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. I have come to my garden, my sister bride. This is God speaking. God is saying, I have come to my garden, namely the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden. This is where the world in the beginning, before Adam ate from the tree, was called Gan Eden. It was called the garden. And as soon as, and God's presence was here. And as soon as Adam ate from the tree, as God's presence went away. And when Moshe came back, and the ensuing generations became worse and worse until came along Abraham. And Abraham started to reverse the process and brought God's presence down here by means of his self-sacrifice and his loyalty to the Creator. And little by little, it came down to the world until it was in the Holy Temple of Mount Sinai, and the revelation of Mount Sinai got put in the Holy Temple. And that was King Solomon's words. He was quoting God, I have come to my garden, my sister bride. The Jewish people are come sometimes called the sister of God and the bride of God at Mount Sinai. V'yadua Maimer al Baal Lula, it's known the Maimer of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Sheotziu, that was brought out, it was brought out to be printed, right? The previous Rebbe had said it years earlier, but it was brought out to be printed, Likrat Asiri, on the 10th day of Shvat, Yakodesh, the 10th day, it will be holy. It says, this is talking about a person that has animals and he has to give 1/10 of them. So it says they're supposed to come out, especially sheep, they come out of the pen, and you have to make it that they come out one at a time. And number 10, you put a mark on it, the 10th is holy. This is that the 10th of Shvat, the 10th of the month of Shvat, that's when the previous Rebbe passed away. The 10th is holy, Yud Shvat. Yom Istalk is the day of the passing away, Shalom. Shechozer Venir, and this day returns and awakens Ba'ofan Nizkarim V'Nasim, in a way that when we mention them, the revelation of the holiness of this day, the 10th day of Shvat, when the previous Rebbe passed away, is mentioned every year. The holiest of all the commandments, we talked about this before, were the sacrifices, the korbanot. That was the holiest of all. And it says that when a tzaddik passes away, it's like a tremendous sacrifice. It's a tremendous revelation in the world. It says the Rebbe that this is revealed every year. And the 10th day of Shvat, which is the anniversary of the previous Rebbe's passing away, like I say, he passed away in 1950. But every year at that date, there is revealed this tremendous revelation of light. Shemevi at the Maimer, that he brings in the Maimer, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar, that God's, from Shir HaShirim, the Maimer from Shir HaShirim, the pasuk from the Song of Songs, that the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that God says, Bati L'Gani L'Ganuni. God says, when King Solomon built the temple, God said, I have come back to my garden, L'Ganuni. Okay, really the temple was built by King Solomon, but actually it was built way before that. It was built like 480 years before that by Moses in the desert. When the Jewish people got out of Egypt, and they received the Torah, right after they received the Torah, so Moshe, a year or whatever after they received the Torah, so Moshe built the tabernacle, a little bit less than a year. He built the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was the holy temple. It was called Mikdash, Asali Mikdash. The tabernacle was the Hamikdash. It was a holy temple, but it was a portable one. And this stayed with the Jews, and for 40 years they were in the desert, and then they came into Israel, and for another 440 years they used this tabernacle in one form or another. It wasn't a holy temple. It was in Shiloh for like 369 years or something, a long time. Until finally King Solomon built the temple. So when when Moses built the tabernacle, and especially when King Solomon built the temple, which that was permanent, so God said, I have come back to my garden, L'Ganuni. Ganuni means my wedding canopy. L'Makom Shaya Ikri, the place where my essence was in the beginning. B'shat Briyat Olam, when God created the world. The Iker Shekhinah, that when God created the world, the Iker Shekhinah, main dwelling of God. And the Rebbe explains, and the first time he explained this matter, he explains that Iker Shekhinah means the essence of God's presence. In other words, this comes from God's essence, no spiritual level, above all levels, above the first contraction, the tzimtzum, etc. The essence of God was in the physical world. And afterwards, because of these deeds, bilti ritzuyim, that were not good, God's presence went away, from above, from below to above. I gave the example. What does it mean? God's presence goes away. It's something like a person's conscience, right? A person comes from a good home and he knows it's a bad thing to steal, but whatever, he gets in with people and he steals. And the first time he steals, he feels like sort of really bad about it. He feels bad about it, and he starts thinking about, well, I took this guy's money from the store owner. He probably worked hard for it, and I just stole it. Maybe I should bring it back. Maybe I should admit it. And then he says, no, if I do, then I'll incriminate the other people. And then life goes on, and he forgets about it. And then the second time he steals, he also feels bad, but not so bad as the first time. And the third time he steals, then he sort of doesn't really feel bad at all. And each ensuing time that he steals, as his conscience, it becomes removed from him, and property becomes valueless, and finally people become valueless. To steal from another person is nothing, and then then finally he himself becomes valueless. He himself is, and the whole of life becomes valueless. Until there were 7 generations, one after the other, that sinned, and the Shekhinah went away. The world became less and less sensitive to God's presence, and God became less and less sensitive, so to speak, to the world. And it went away to the Rakia Shvi, so to speak. It went away 7 heavens. It was distant. And afterwards, the tzaddikim stood up. And the Shekhinah came from above to below. Came along Abraham. He really believed in God. He was totally loyal to God in all situations. And God tested him and drove him crazy. And Abraham still stayed in his same faith and loyalty to the creator of the universe. Didn't, to the point where God said, take your son and kill him. That's going to be, your whole future is going to be wiped out. You're willing to do that for me? And Abraham said, yes, anything you want. And Judaism became again connected to God. That was the Holy Temple. And the Jews knew that was their job, was to make the whole world realize that God loves them. God's creating them. God's creating the whole world. Everything has a purpose. The whole world has a purpose. Afterwards came along Abraham, and Abraham started bringing the Shekhinah back down. It began from the Rakia Shvi, from the 7th heaven, until this physical world. Like it says, tzaddikim yirshu oretz v'yishkenu la'ad aleha. It says that the tzaddikim, they inherit the world, and they make yishkenu aleha. They make God dwell on it. Yishkenu, they make God the eternal one, la'ad. It's changing the simple meaning of the words. God, they make the eternal one, the la'ad means the eternal one, they make the eternal one live on it. B'chin shochen ad, this level of God, which is called that he dwells forever in heavens, and that he comes down to the earth. Shochen ad marom kadosh shemo, that God's high and holy, but he comes down to this physical world and reveals that this world is very, very important to him. More important than all the spiritual worlds. Ad Moshe, and they brought it down to the world until Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe was the number 7th. Now you have to realize that all these other, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and everything, they served God and they didn't see any results. They just brought God's presence down from the 7th heaven to the 6th, to the 5th, to the 4th. What this means, right, is just spiritual levels. They didn't see anything physical in this world. They just had total loyalty, and they didn't demand anything in return. Until came Moshe. And Moshe, he's the number 7. And it says in other places that the number 7 is a very special number in Judaism. The number 7, all 7s are dear. Anyone who happens to come out the number 7 on him, that's a sign that somehow or other he's dear. Not because he's special, intelligent, or whatever. It just happens he's number 7. Number 7 itself is a holy thing. Shabbos is a holy day because it's number 7. It's the same as every other day. It's 24 hours. Right? There's day and night, that the heavens don't change. But it came out number 7, so it's a special holy day. Sha'al Yadam, by means of Moshe, he was number 7, so he was especially holy. Nasa Bapoil, it came actually, Inyan, the Yered Havaya al Har Sinai, then God's presence came down and was revealed in this physical world on Mount Sinai. But today, in order that this revelation of God should be drawn down, but often kavua, in a set way, Haya, there was after the commandment, Asuli Migdash v'shachanti b'tochim. God commanded Moshe, make me a holy temple and I will dwell within you. Asuli Migdash v'shachanti mesochim, that they should make a holy temple and I will dwell in them. In other words, in the Jewish people. The Jewish people, and it doesn't say I will make me a holy temple and I will dwell in it. It says make me a holy temple and I will dwell in them, in each and every one. And from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu now, each one of us is a potential holy temple. And if we make ourselves a holy temple, then the real holy temple God will bring the real holy temple here. Shazeh, this is the whole idea of Asiyat Mishkan, making the Mishkan, making the tabernacle in the desert. The option even though it says I will dwell inside of them, inside of each and every one. Hare inyan zeh, this naseh was made by means of the temple. God wanted there to be a holy temple, not just in the people, to be in the world, to show that not just people are holy, also the world is holy. The ikar shechina, that the main essence of God was in this world, the ikra, that it's called mikdash. It's called a mikdash. This mishkan that Moshe made, the tabernacle, which was impermanent, was also called mikdash. Asali mikdash was referring to the tabernacle also. Shabo shura shechina, that there God's presence was there. Ha'elyona, the highest level of godliness was revealed there. Yishkenu la'ad alel. And it continues in the Maimer She'inyan Ikari b'Mishkan, that this whole idea of the Mishkan, the holy temple, one main thing is Mashkatuv Asita, the crushing. That in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, the walls were made from boards. The boards were called crushing. And the crushing, they came from Atze Shitim. They came from Shitim wood that was standing up. Is a karushim, that the main thing of this making of the karushim, Atze Shitim, from the Shitim wood, was, who is Shemahapchim, at the shtut, that was made from wood that was called Shitim wood. And the purpose was to transform the shtut, the craziness. Shtut milashon Shitim is from shtut, means craziness. The want to call it the wildness. A sheker, and the lies. Kerish, the word kerish means a board, but it has the same letters as sheker. Sheker, the olamas of this world, the osim mizem, there is made from this karushim the mishkan, boards for the mishkan. In other words, that was the idea of what happens when God's presence is in here? What happens when God's presence is here? That everything becomes a lie. Everything becomes a lie. What's the lie? The lie is that the world announces and the world proves that there's no God. The world is a proof that there is no God. It used to be, before the Lubavitcher Rebbe came along, this present Lubavitcher Rebbe came along, that the biggest enemy of Judaism was science. The world is only 5,000 years old. What are you talking about? Science proved that it's 20 billion years old. You want to say that God creates everything? What are you talking about? There's proof. Science proved that it is, there's evolution, right? You want to prove that there's such a thing as truth? Science proves, comes along, Freud and these people know everything is selfish. Everything you do is selfish and it's for an ulterior motive. and you do it because you have the neuroses and psychoses, and that's why people act the way they are. There's no such thing as really true. You just do. There's only nature. And so science became the big enemy of God, saying we can explain everything without God. You don't need any God. Exactly the opposite. God just, we've healed every disease, we've solved every problem, we've sent a man to the moon. Science is God. So that's a big lie. That's a big lie. Science is not. Science is very good. It's very good, but that's not God. It's not that. Science can't talk about the creator, can't talk about what is really true. Science won't bring you loyalty. Won't bring you loyalty to this, not the loyalty to anything. Here we see now in the world, this World Health Organization is exactly the opposite, right? It's just a huge political lie, and it's convinced the whole world also. And everybody's afraid, and everybody's afraid for their lives, and people don't want to come close to each other. Just the whole world is just a huge lie. It's become a whole. That's what the world is. That's what the world is. The idea of the Holy Temple and of this self-sacrifice and loyalty, real loyalty to God, is to change the sheker of the world to kerish. One of the kerish means one of the boards of the Holy Temple. The olam is that this whole world, take the sheker, the lies of this world, that the whole world itself that seems to declare that it's a separate existence is a big lie. And taking this whole world and making from this coronation lemishkan, that the world becomes a big miracle of God. You see that everything in the world is this huge, amazing miracle of the creator of the universe. But often the omdim, and it says that these crushing, these boards were standing. She'inyan amida, that they're standing, this indicates on tokif, powerful. Veheder ashinoi, that the world will be permanent, the world will be real. Now the world is not real, now the world is a big lie. And by revealing godliness in the world, we realize that the world is not just being created by atoms or by big black holes or whatever it is, or by the principles of physics. Principles of physics, they're interrelationships in the world, but that doesn't create anything. That's not, the world is being created by the God, the creator of the whole universe. Every instant, every person is being created. And that means that everything is really somehow or other, every instant is really infinite. It says, by the way, that Adam, before he ate from the tree, he was supposed to live forever. He was supposed to live eternally. And you can ask, wouldn't that be boring? Live eternally, especially with no television, no what's up, it must be the most boring thing in the world. Exactly the opposite. Every single instant he realized was holy. Every single instant, past, present, and future, was all one big bundle of meaning. And he couldn't wait. Every second was a miracle. That there wouldn't be any change to Zeu Klalasinyan. This is the whole idea of Maisa Tachtoni. And that's the whole idea of what that we do in this world. Masenu v'avodatenu, by means of our deeds and our service of God physical in this world, this osim, we make a dwelling for God in this physical world. We make the world into a permanent, meaningful, blessed, exciting, happy place, healthy. They said by means of this, Nishalem, Haratzon, Elyon, by means of this, we complete God's upper will. Shinisava Kodesh Baruch Hu, that God wants the to be low, is a dwelling in this lower world. Mostly by Maimer, and it adds on the Maimer, Shebishvil Zed, that in order to do this, Kedeli fall in order, that we should bring about that this low physical world will be a dwelling for God. Yesh tzarich, there's a necessity, B'tzivos Hashem, of the armies of God. Shem B'nai Yisrael, that's the Jewish people. The Jewish people, Likru came, recalled this, the Rishona, the Tzeis Me'eretz Mitzrayim, to go out of the land of Egypt. When the Jews were in Egypt, they were slaves to Egypt. They couldn't think for themselves, and they certainly couldn't think for God. They were slaves. All they could do was just hold on to their Judaism. That's all they could do. And they did. The majority of the Jews did. When it came out that they were going to leave Egypt, a lot of them didn't want to go out of Egypt. It says in the future, redemption won't be that way. But nevertheless, The Jews, when they got out of Egypt, they were given the name of the armies of God. We just finished reading that. And this in this week's Torah portion. I will take out my armies, tzivotai, shebezeh, that this nichlal is called the Yetzirah. Oh, by the way, in order, right over here, in order to transform the craziness and the lie of this world to godliness, we have to be crazy ourselves. Not we have to lie, but we have to be crazy for God. Shehem, Bnei Israel, the Jewish people, Shenikru, L'Rishona, but they were called, as soon as they left Egypt, they were called the armies of God. Shebezen, Nichlalo, Nichlalas, Gami, Yetzirah, Me'amatzorim, V'agavulim, Shel Olam Hazeh, Tachton. When the Jews left Egypt, they didn't just leave a country of Egypt. They did, of course, they did leave a country that was called Mitzrayim. And it was basically the same borders as there is now. Basically the same area. But the Egypt that they went out then was totally, totally different than the Egypt that's now. It was totally different. First of all, they were all idolaters. Second, they were all magicians. Thirdly, they ruled over the whole world. It says they ruled over the whole world. And the Jews were their prisoners. The Jews were their prisoners. Now Egypt, at least they're Muslims. Muslims, at least they believe in God. They deny the Torah, but at least they believe God. They're not a superpower in any way. Maybe in the Arab world they are, I don't know. And they're not as evil as they were then. They had everybody with they had slaves, and they kept them as slaves, as far as I know. But when they left Egypt, the main thing was not just that they left Egypt. They left all the bound. The word Egypt, Mitzrayim, also in Hebrew, means meitzarim, boundaries, limitations. They left all of the limitations, all the lies of this world. It means like this, that in the word tzava, there are three meanings. One of them is three meanings. Ha'echad, one of them is chayil, a soldier. Hainu shabodasam, that their service is to be like a soldier. Ofen anshe tzava, that they have to be fighters, self-sacrificing. Shenyanu shal ish tzava, that the whole thing of a soldier, ish tzava, is shamoser nafshal melech, that he's willing to give his life to carry out the king's will. He gives his soul, he's willing to give his life for the king. Rosh Tzava, the head of the army, the king, he's the head of the army, and he's the mafaked al tzava, and he's the commander of the army. Number two, Lashon Zman, Mugbal, a limited time. Shezeu was a man, Mugbal, Lavodas called Echad Misrael. This is the limited time for the service of every Jew. The limited time. Every Jew has a limited amount of time that he can serve God. Life, how long is life, right? Since Adam ate from the tree, people only live for a certain amount of time. So every Jew is given a certain amount of time, a limited amount of time of life to do this job. That's also tzava. And the third is Milashon Tzivayon, for beauty. Beauty, multitude of colors, tzivayon. Kamo tzivionam nivra'u, like they were in the different types, different, right, harmony. Shezeu pa'er batiferes. This is the beauty. Shebehit kalalud kama gavanim. Tzivayon means a lot of different colors, but it means, generally speaking, beauty. The beauty of the, right, of a lot of harmony. What do you say? Harmony and colors and everything. Look at how beautiful. That's tzivion. So the word tzava means three things: a soldier, a limited amount of time, and also beauty. That's the word tzava. That's what it means. The Jewish people are called tzivaot Hashem. They're called the armies of God, and they have a certain amount of time to fix the world up. Each person does, and ideally they contain in themselves this amazing beauty and harmony that is potentially brought into the world. Because the world is so diverse. To make this whole world into a harmony, it's amazing. Similarly, ben Israel, regarding the Jewish people, that their minds are not, each Jew, his personality is not the same. that every single Jew is different, and every single Jew is a different level. There's the highest and the highest, the most genius, and then there's the most simple of simple. And nevertheless, mitztarfim kulam yachad, they can all be joined together. Uba'ofen shen nitzavim, that they can be standing, ba'omdim betokev, standing strong like a tzava, like an army. Lifnei Hashem Elokeichem, before God. They said by means of this, by means of the Jews assuming on themselves, each and every one, to be a soldier and to try to bring out this beauty and harmony, and using the time that we have to the best use. Umila shlichos, doing the shlichos, how do you say, the purpose for which we were sent in this world. Then the Jewish people will go out like they went out of Egypt, it said, with an upraised hand. Okay, and this is what will continue on, God willing, on Sunday, to understand a little bit deeper why the Jews are called by the name of the armies of God. That the word Tzivaot Hashem, the word Tzivaot is also means an army, but it also is one of the names of God, Hashem Tzvaot. It's one of the names of God that if it's written, you're not supposed to erase it. And we'll talk about that, God willing. It says this is one of the 7 names of God that they're not supposed to erase. What is the explanation about this? We'll learn, God willing, on Sunday. Here is the Yom Yom, today's Yom Yom. Today is the second day of tzvah of this, of Shvat. Okay. There was a mimer which was called Va'era, Shemi, which was written. It's not printed in the book Torah or that we learn in the morning. It's sometimes called the religious Va'era. And the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he would say it once every 3 years. And each time he would say almost exactly the same language. His memory was superhuman. It was the same with all the Rebbes of Chabad. The Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, said even though all the words were exactly the same, but every time there was a new light. And my father would say a light is always the same, but the one who gives out the light, Me'or, can always bring out something brand new. Okay, that is today's Yom Yom. God willing, we'll meet again on Sunday. Shabbat Shalom and Lehitraot.